Welcome to section 1.2, the real number Death Star. The Death Star! It's Star Wars Day! Extreme close up! All real numbers can be classified and placed into what I like to call the real number Death Star. Mathematicians are a little like scientists and they like to classify things. And so I'm going to teach you today the different types of classifications. These are known as the subsets of the real numbers, and I'm going to call it the Death Star. Now, the most important part of the Death Star that you probably know is the center part of the Death Star. Oh yeah, the very core of the Death Star. The core of the Death Star, if we were to consider this like numbers, would be the basic counting numbers, the 1, the 2, the 3, and ... We call these the natural numbers. It's these basic numbers that create the core of our Death Star, the core of our counting system. If we were to lose these, the whole thing would go up in flames. Kaboom! So if you were a stormtrooper, and for example, you're stormtrooper number 4, stormtrooper 4, where are you? Well, stormtrooper 4 is a natural number, and so we would say he is natural. For the natural, we use the letter N to represent natural. And so N, just remember, in this class, will be the natural numbers. So that's any number starting at 1 and going through our counting numbers. The next layer of the Death Star includes all of the natural numbers. So 1, 2, 3, these are all included in this next outer layer. The only difference is that we're going to add the number 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on comprise this next layer. And these are called the whole numbers, And we use the letter W to represent whole numbers. Again, if you're Stormtrooper number 4, Stormtrooper 4, where are you? Well, Stormtrooper 4, he could be a natural number, and he is also a whole number. He belongs to both of these categories. So Stormtrooper 3 is whole and natural. Now, if you're Stormtrooper 0, ooh, time for a nerd question. Who was Stormtrooper 0? Let's find out if you got any Star Wars fans out there. Stormtrooper 0, who is he? It's this guy, Jango Fett. That's Stormtrooper 0. Oh, well, might have to brush up on your Star Wars trivia here. Stormtrooper 0 is a whole number. He's not a natural number. He's not allowed to move to the inside of the core. You can inside of the Death Star, you can only move out. So notice that 3, he can move out. 3 is a whole number and a natural number, but 0 is only a whole number. Let's go to the next layer of the Death Star. The next layer of the Death Star includes our negative numbers as well, like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Any of our positive or negative counting numbers fall under this category, and this category is called the integers category. Integers. I like to spell integers wrong with a Z. You're going to want to spell integers wrong with a Z because Z is its letter nickname. So if you ever want to say all the integers, you would use a capital letter Z. That represents the integers. Notice that all of our negative numbers, so if you're Stormtrooper -2, where are you? Well, Stormtrooper -2, he's an integer. He can only go to the integer category. But again, notice our number 3, Stormtrooper 3, he's important. He's a natural, he's whole, and he's an integer. Now that I've taught you a couple of the subsets of the real numbers of the real Death Star, let's take a commercial break. This is brought to you by Star Wars and BYU Idaho. Enjoy.
The regional governors now have direct control over their territories. Fear will keep the local systems in line.
Hello? Hey, what's going on? No, it's totally cool. I'm just in a meeting. She's cute? Yeah, no, I'm gonna come down and check her out. Where's she being held? No, I'll remember the number. Okay, yeah. Cell block 1138. Cool, yeah, I'll be down right...
Enough of this. Vader, release him.
Remember, brothers and sisters, any kind of addiction is to surrender something, thus relinquishing agency and becoming dependent. Thus, video gaming and texting on cell phones need to be added to the list. Texting on cell phones can become an addictive procedure, and that causes the important and interpersonal human communications to become lost.
That is a funny video. I love the Darth Vader grip on the guy with the cell phone. Now, I have to admit, I'm no Darth Vader, so I'm not going to reach through the screen and grab you. But you will want to make sure to not let that cell phone be a distraction as you are progressing through our lessons. Now, let's get back to the real number Death Star. The next layer of the Death Star, and one of the most outer layers, so this is an important layer, all except for this part right here. Gotta cut out a little piece of the Death Star. This outside category is one of the biggest categories. It includes the naturals, the wholes, the integers, and it also includes all fractions, all fractional numbers. We call these the rationals. These are the rationals, and we use the letter Q to represent the rationals. The rationals. Rationals just means fractional. Fractional. So that's any fraction. Any fraction. So that would be like, I don't know, 2/5 and 3/1 and -7/2 and 1/3. And because it includes any fractions, it does include decimals as well, because all decimals can be written as fractions. Well, most decimals. So if it's a terminating decimal, terminating, that means it ends, like 0.125, that can be written as a fraction. Any terminating decimal, any decimal that ends, can be written as a fraction, and you can use your fraction decimal button to convert it to a fraction. Also, any repeating fraction, repeaters. So like 1/3 is 0.3 with a bar over it. It's 0.3333333. 0.33333 with a bar over it is also rational. So anything that can be written as a fraction, any terminating decimal, any repeating decimal fall under this huge rational category. Oh, that's really important to the Empire. Oh, yes, but maybe not as important as this last category. The last category of the real numbers is the weapon itself. Oh, I love the weapon. Oh, best part of Star Wars is when the Emperor's like, you will see that this base is fully operational. Oh, man, that was crazy. And what's even more crazier is this guy. And this guy's like, oh no, it's a trap. Oh man, Star Wars. Crazy. Now the last part of the Death Star is the Emperor's weapon. Oh yes, it's the part that, you know, when all the crazy green stuff came together and it was like the lasers and it was like, and it blew up the planet. Oh yes. There are only a few stormtroopers that actually get to go into the weapon. Okay, we call these the irrationals. Irrational. These are only numbers that cannot be written like a fraction. So it's any decimal that goes on forever without any pattern. Oh man, can you think of any numbers that go on forever without any pattern? Hopefully you can think of a couple. For example, the number pi. Pi is the world's most famous irrational number. In fact, we will be celebrating. It's so important. We're going to celebrate this on 3.14. March 14th, we will celebrate Pi Day. It's going to be epic. Pi is an irrational number. Most of our square roots are irrational, like the square root of 3, square root of 2. Square root of 4 is not irrational because the square root of 4 equals 2. So that's not an irrational number. But any of the other roots that don't come out even are irrational. So just be aware that any number that has no pattern and goes on forever is irrational. That right there is the lesson. What I want you to do is I want you to pause the video now. I'm going to write up 5 numbers, and what I'd like you to do is pause the video, and I want you to see if you can classify these numbers. Take each of these numbers and classify them into their real number, into their subsets. Can you tell us what subsets they belong to? Oh, I forgot to mention that we use the letter I, a capital I, to represent the irrationals. So if you don't want to write these out each time, like you don't want to write out natural every single time, you can just put N. Okay, here we go. Here's our 5 practice problems for you to do. I want you to classify the number 7. I want you to classify question number 2. You can do these right in your notes. I want you to classify the number -4. Question number 3, I want you to classify the number -2 pi. Question number 4, I want you to classify the number 0. And this last one, question number 5, I want you to classify the number 3/7. Go ahead and pause the video now, and let's see if you can get these 5 numbers and these 5 stormtroopers classified into the correct subsets of the real numbers. Good luck. Pause the video now. Unpause it when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, welcome back. Let's find out how you did. Let's begin with this one right here. The question number 1 asks you to classify the number 7. Question number 1 asks you to classify the number 7. Well, Stormtrooper 7, where are you? Well, Stormtrooper 7 starts here in the core. He's right here. So he's natural, so I would use the capital letter N. It's also an integer, so I would use the capital letter Z. It's also a whole number. Let's do these in order. I apologize. So 7 is here. It's natural. It's whole. It's an integer, so I use the letter Z. It's also rational, so I use Q. And last, and I didn't actually teach you this. This is kind of rude. I'm going to teach you right now. The last thing that it is it's also R. We use the letter R to represent all real numbers. And I told you that this is the real number Death Star. So anything in this real Death Star will also be classified as a real number. And we use capital letter R to represent real number. Okay, let's check out number 2. Number 2, we said to classify the number -4. Stormtrooper -4, where are you? Well, let's classify him. -4, let's see, he's not natural, he's not whole, he is an integer. He's an integer because negative counting numbers are integers. Good. Any fraction. -4 can be written as a fraction, so I'm going to classify him as Q. And of course, he's in the real Death Star. All of these numbers are also going to get an R because they're all real numbers. Okay, let's take a look. Let's keep going here. Let's classify Stormtrooper -2 pi. Oh, if I was a Stormtrooper, I'd want to be -2 pi. I guarantee he is delicious. Stormtrooper -2 pi, where are you? Well, he's not natural because he's not a counting number. He's not whole. He's not an integer. He's not rational. Pi is an irrational number. So I would use the letter I to classify this. And of course, the letter R to classify that he is real. So I for irrational and R for real. Those are my answers for Stormtrooper -2 pi. Okay, Stormtrooper 0. Let's find out where this guy would end up in our Death Star. Stormtrooper Zero, where does he have security clearance? Where can you go, Stormtrooper Zero? Well, Stormtrooper Zero is a whole number. That's where he starts. He can't move inside, but he can move outside, so that makes him an integer. That's Z. Makes him rational. That's Q. And it also makes him real, which is R. He's not irrational. Only irrational numbers can run the weapon. How did you do so far? Hopefully pretty good. Let's check question number 5, last one here, to see if you have mastered the real Death Star. 3/7. 3/7 is a fraction, so it's not natural, it's not whole, it's not an integer, but it is irrational. And so that's Q. And last of all, it would be real as well, not irrational. And that's it for this section 1.2. Our goal was to classify numbers in the real Death Star, and we did it. Good luck to you on the assignment, and may the number force be with you. This is Brother O, signing out.